All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Six Questions with Alana. That's me. And with us again today, we have our lovely faculty choreographer, Jennifer Curan. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Back with us again for another
Yay. Sick of me yet?
Yeah, right. It was a Jen show. Today, we're talking about one of your film works, Caught Sight Of, which was a really fun concept. Can you kind of talk us through that creative process?
Yes. So I just wanted to create a piece where we were using the headlights of cars as the lighting source. That was like my first and most basic idea. And I had a lot of thoughts of how I wanted to do this, but time, budget, location, all of those things came into play. And it ended up being that we rehearsed for about 4 or 5 weeks. I don't know. So part of the semester, we went into the studio, created some movement with the dancers. And that's the other thing is I was thinking I wanted 4 dancers for that. And I ended up having like, oh my goodness, so many more. I think it was like 8 or 9 dancers. Yeah. And then we ended up going outside and filming it in one evening. So, and I thought originally that we could use 1 or 2 cars, and it ended up that we needed to use multiple cars, and that the whole like headlight thing didn't really work in the way that we thought it would. So there was a lot of like altering, and we ended up dancing out in the parking lot, but it was in dirt and gravel, which changed a lot of things. And it ended up not being at night, but during sunset, which I actually think ended up being cooler. So really some things worked in, like the positive, and other things just ended up being what they were. I do feel like in some ways it's a first draft. Like it's a
Mm.
concept that I want to explore again and in other ways. But
Oh,
we did
cool.
something, we created a piece. I definitely think it was cool, and there's some beautiful imagery that came out of it. And Desiree from That's a Wrap Videography is the one who filmed it, and she also used a drone footage.
Yeah.
So that was fun
Yeah.
and something extra that I was excited that we have.
Yeah. I know it's nice when we have people that have all these fun toys for us to use.
Exactly.
How did you go about choosing the music and the costumes and obviously the props for the cars, but how did you kind of create that world vision?
Yeah, so the whole thing was kind of based off the music, one having to have the rights to it.
Mm.
So I went into a website and found a couple different pieces of music that I could purchase the rights to because I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to use it legally. So found that piece and it kind of worked. And I think that definitely drove, sorry, I forget the other part of the question you were asking. No, I'm like,
Music and costumes.
oh, costumes. So that's where the music part came from. The costumes, I had seen some works, some dance films that had these like really strange, like I don't know, strange costumes. And so I brought them to Christina and I was like, I want to use this kind of as inspiration. I don't necessarily want to like do exactly what this is, but I liked that it was like really obscure and they kind of felt like they were like going to war in a way, but not. I
Mhm.
don't know. There was some
Yeah.
just really interesting element. She's like, oh, let's use this like cape idea because they had these capes on.
Yeah.
So like, let's use this cape idea, but instead of making it like everyone's in a cape, we'll put different capes on people in different ways. So some people had like a side cape, some people
Yeah.
had like a belt cape. And so there was this extra like layer, and then it was definitely urban
Mhm.
like attire tied into that. And then the dancers had to wear shoes because we were outside in the dirt on rocks and it just like was not feasible to be
Yeah.
barefoot.
Mhm.
So originally I was like thinking that we'd be barefoot, but then depend where we ended up filming, just shoes ended up being the jam.
You're very kind for allowing them to that would have been
And,
really
and
bad.
it did alter some of the choreography. Like I definitely had wanted more floor work, but it
Mm,
just once I picked that location, I was like, I can't ask
no,
you to go to the ground
no.
in this
They had to
environment.
perform live in a few weeks. It would have been
Yeah, it would
brutal.
have, yeah. In fact, the dust ended up being very problematic. A bunch of the dancers like felt really horrible afterwards. Like in the moment, we didn't realize it, but the next, like that late night later and the next day, they were all like, oh, like we feel so
Oh,
bad because of all this dust that we
yeah.
intaked. And I
Oh,
was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So in the
sorry.
test, it was just me, for a short amount of time and it wasn't as problematic.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, they pushed through. They did it.
They did.
They're
They did.
strong.
And we had a lot of
um,
fun too. It was
yeah.
fun.
I mean, it looks like it too. Just that concept is so fun. Um, how did you use the different experience levels of your dancers to showcase their talents in this piece?
Yeah, so this was an R&P piece, so it was an eclectic group.
Mm-hmm.
We had dancers who have danced forever. We had people who hadn't danced in a number of years that were coming back and just wanted to take part. I had dancers I'd never worked with, dancers I've known for years at IVC. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a group. I think the other tricky thing is that it's not really typical Gen choreography. I called it Gen hip hop.
Oh yeah. Gen pop.
So it definitely had like more of a driving beat and like an urban feel than a lot
Mm-hmm.
of what I normally do. And we did use a lot of improv, which I think was good and bad. So there was like sections that were choreographed and sections that were improv based but had really finite construction over the top of it. So I was saying like you need to do this in this space with these
Mm.
guidelines. And for some of the dancers that turned into set choreography for them, and others there was a little bit more freedom.
Yeah.
But it definitely was like me exploring newer movement, which I found to be problematic because I didn't know how to always express what it was that I was doing. Like I
Yeah.
was like doing this like footstep thing in one of the phrases and they were like, "What is this?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I could just do it over and over
Figure it
again." So
out.
yeah, there was like 1 2 hour rehearsal where we worked on like a no joke, probably like 16 counts to like figure out what I was doing because like I could do it and do it over and over again, but I couldn't explain what I
Yeah.
was doing. And apparently it was like not a hip hop step, but it was close to a hip hop step, which therefore made the hip hop dancers get confused
Because they're
because
like,
it
we've
was like
done
this
something like
weird,
this.
yeah, it was like a rock, but not. And they were like, what are you doing? Like they couldn't like wrap their head around it. So it was a challenge for all of us for those reasons.
It's so funny. That actually leads us kind of a little bit into that next question of difficult situation or memorable moment that your dancers had to either work through or,
Yeah. I
figure out. And
think
that kind of sounds
part
like that.
Yeah, I think that sort of thing definitely came up, but I think the biggest challenge with film work is that there's always this bit of like uncertainty, and dancers are used to like having all of the answers or like at least being given all of the
Yeah.
answers. And so with film work, I'm like, hey, like this is the overview, this is our plan, but when we get out there, I may like throw a left swing at you and be like, okay, now I need you to do this, or
Yeah.
like totally ixnay what we've planned, and now we're going to do this.
Yeah.
So I think them being open was good, and they were open, but I definitely could see the challenges of them like rethinking, and then also choreographing in the space had problematic because they had a front in their mind, even though I choreographed different
Mm,
phrases facing different directions so that they wouldn't get a front in their mind.
you always do though.
They had a front. So then when we got there, they kept going like, well, where's the front? And I was like, there is no front.
This is
So then finally we kind of like had to like label it in a way for them to like see that it was like rotating.
yeah.
And I think that was more challenging than they expected or I
Yeah.
expected, or took just like a little bit more time. And one thing that I definitely would not do again, I would always, if I could, rehearse in the space I was going to film in. And I'm doing that this semester. We're filming in the PAC lobby, and
Oh,
we've
cool.
been out there doing our rehearsals
That's
for that
nice.
film piece because I'm like, I don't want to get stuck. I create movement differently, and I guess I've gotten good at being in the studio and seeing how that translates to the proscenium stage as well as the dancers.
Yeah.
But when you take that space and then, like, for instance, the next piece is going into a corner and this was in the round,
Yeah.
it like just messes with like we live in a box and then we
Totally.
assume that that box is everywhere. And
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
no, get rid of the
Studio to
box.
stage is much different than like studio to film.
Yes.
Or
I was like,
especially
there's no
outdoors.
box. It's a
Yeah.
circle.
Front. Everything's front.
Yeah.
Um, did your piece this time display any, well, new techniques? Dance style would be a new one. Any other techniques that you haven't used before, either with like filming or lighting or anything?
Yeah, I think for filming, I really gave it over to Desiree. Like, I didn't come in and say, like, I want this to be filmed this way.
Mm-hmm.
I really was like open to the idea of like true collaboration. I was like, here's what we have, do what you do with it. And then she edited it as well. So she filmed it and she edited it. I had worked with her previously where I filmed it,
Mm-hmm.
and then I gave her the footage and she edited it.
Yeah.
And then I had worked on the proscenium stage with her filming and editing it, but again, that's different. And I also kept reiterating to her, even though we had a piece, it wasn't a complete piece that you could see on the stage. So
Mm.
there were holes and there were no, I didn't choreograph transitions
Yeah.
because I was like, we don't need a transition because you're just going to cut
Edit
in the
it.
film to other things. So that process was definitely a different process
Yeah.
for me and her, and a little bit like trusting of how
Mhm.
it was going to end up because was like it could have gone any way. And there's definitely some things she did that I didn't expect, and then other things where I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly like what I was thinking.
Yes. I like
So
when that happens.
yeah,
Yeah. Pleasantly surprised. And then also like, that's exactly what my vision was.
exactly.
She's so good. She's so good. Um, Final question is there anything you'd like to say to potential either student choreographers or dancers who would like to come join us at Irvine Valley College?
I would just say that if anyone has an interest in dance film, that I really feel like we have been exploring this. I know I personally am obsessed with it, and I
Yes.
am really down to get some more students that are interested in dance film in multiple ways, even if it's a collaboration, if you're not a dancer, but you're a filmmaker or another type of artist, that like this project definitely reopened why I love collaboration and why I would love every project to have some more collaborative elements. We always collaborate with the dancers, obviously. We always collaborate with the costume designer and the lighting designer, but just anything extra that we can add into that. Like I'm a collaboration junkie.
You really are.
To anyone else who wants to collaborate, like come, because I feel like everyone at IVC is open and willing and interested to take part in that. And if you have something new, like we're down to make it happen.
Yeah, come play with us. We're fun.
Exactly. Come play with us. That should be our slogan.
That should be our slogan. I'm so good at those. All right, Jen, thank you so much for talking to us about your piece. And we hope everyone enjoys the name that has fallen out of my head.
Hot side of.
Hot side up.
Yes, I know. When you choreograph 4 pieces for the show, it's real easy for you to
I can
go,
only keep track of 3. That's my limit.
What one was it? Yes, hot side of.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.